good afternoon and welcome back. It's Uncle Phil, as promised, with the Frixer. We affectionately know him as Joe. We're glad to have him back as well. And today we are digging into the AFC East and kind of working our way down again, each division at a time. And we will finish it up by our last video, our 10th video of the series, by doing our playoff and Super Bowl predictions. So really exciting. Well, listen, man, this has been a division that seems like it's just been owned by the Bills for a few years now. The Jets have been a mess. The Dolphins can't quite get on top. I mean, with Mike McDaniel, who's supposed to be this guy, we're Brian Flores. We're like, hey, we got to save this for Brian Flores. We had to totally out him. And then now, just a few years after Flores have left, Miami actually has a worse record under McDaniel than it did under Flores. So we're kind of back there. And, like I said, the Jets have just not seemed to get out of their own way, for a lot of reasons. We'll discuss those here. And the same thing with the Patriots, have struggled a little bit post Tom Brady. Bill Belichick, like a lot of people do, a lot of coaches do, they accumulate power. It's too much power. They started, they're like, hey, I want to pick the groceries too. And, they kind of get outside their lane, and that leads to destruction. And last year, Gerard Mayo, just like the majority, like 99% of Bill's assistants, just didn't do well beyond that. And we're kind of seeing who was the key to that. And it was clearly Tom Brady was kind of holding that up. Bill was certainly this mastermind coach, certainly one of the best defensive coaches all time. Maybe, certainly has a case for being the best coach of all time as well, but certainly the best defensive coach. And just wasn't aware of a man's got to know his limitations. I don't think Bill ever quite knew those. But clearly doesn't have limitations in age gaps either. So, but that's a different story. So anyway, what do you think? Let's start off with the first. We're going to go in alphabetical order as we break down these divisions. We're going to start with Buffalo. Joe, what do you think about Buffalo this year? Are they going to win the AFC East again, or where do you see them this year stacking up with the rest of them?
All right. Well, as I mentioned in the last episode, I'm the Frixer, so I'm only dangerous when I think I know what I'm talking about. So you're in luck with this one, because I don't know a lot about the AFC East other than it's kind of easy to call this one for the Bills. I know, Phil, you'll have some more in-depth takes, but I think clearly, Buffalo is the class of the division, and will remain so this year. And it all comes down to Josh Allen. The guy's amazing, and he's amazing in ways that people don't even give him credit for. He's the second best in the NFL at avoiding sacks, which has been an area of concentration for me, because I view sacks as basically a punt. They're drive killers, and the guy only had 14 sacks last year, and while producing at the rate that he did. So the guy he's an offensive weapon, and he never turns the weapon on himself. So that's amazing. And then of course, Buffalo has they bolstered his ability, with a generally strong offense. They've got some questions at receiver, and safety and things like that. But I mean, the defense is pretty good too. I think my biggest take besides Josh Allen is the turnover margin. They had easily the highest positive turnover margin last year at plus 24, and that's 8 better than the next best team, Pittsburgh. And typically what we've seen in the past is that that's not highly controllable, and so those things tend to regress. And so if there's one threat for the Buffalo Bills, I don't think it's really coming from the other teams within the division. I think it's coming from the expected regression in the turnover margin and what that might do to their season. But I still expect them to be the strongest team.
Look, I think that's right on target with what I'm thinking as well. Certainly that's the deal with Buffalo. Look, there's two things that the the Bills do very well. They don't turn the ball over, which leads to that positive turnover motion. They only had 8 turnovers last season, which is the lowest since that stat was first tracked back in 1934. I I mean, that's remarkable. To your point, probably going to see some regression this year. You just can't. I mean, you have the best stat of all time, and it's only had 8 turnovers. Would be shocked if it weren't more this year, which could potentially lead some opportunities. We'll kind of talk about that here in a minute as well. And they're also going to win about 13 games. The second thing, just the past 6 years, they won 78 games, which is an average of 13 games a season. It helps that they've been playing in the NFC East, for where they've been, because they kind of came on when Tom Brady was leaving, and the AFC East has just kind of been a mess this entire time. So, but that leads to, even though they win these 13 games, they have to play at home. They've lost 8 straight playoff games when playing on the road. That's not going to get it done. So they've got to come out strong. That number 1 seed for them is just imperative this year. Why do you think that this team is so dependent upon playing at home and is not able to win those playoff games on the road?
I don't know, but I mean, when it comes to the NFL and football in general, the sample size is so small that I'm very careful not to draw, trends from a small sample. Although, I'll kick that one back to you. I mean, if you have any insights about that, but in terms of the NFL and the sample size you get in football, like I'm careful not to draw trends from small samples.
Yeah, no doubt. Look, but it's my job to draw those trends, because again, I'm betting against the spread every week, and I'm trying to make an angle for all my subscribers out there. And thank you to everyone who do subscribe. I appreciate that, and thank you for all the follows and the comments. Those are always appreciated. But again, Buffalo has a decent home field advantage there. Certainly when it's the lake effect snows, it gets even better. But that's only 1 or 2 games a year. What you said initially was Josh Allen. He's the difference maker for that team. He's leading that team. Unfortunately, when it comes down to it, you have a defensive head coach in Sean McDermott, and those just aren't the guys that are leading teams to championships. The last 10 Super Bowl winners have all been offensive coaches. And you see with Sean McDermott, you got to be good on your side of the ball. If that's what you're doing, it's got to be buttoned up. But they are not stopping anybody. I mean, routinely teams are scoring in the playoffs on them, 30 points a game. I mean, it's just it's a really tough one Kansas City scored 32 on them in the conference championship game. And they just couldn't win. They couldn't get that extra yard. They couldn't win when it mattered. And the difference between good and great is inches. It's not feet. And they just seem to come up those few inches short. It's unfortunate. I mean, Sean McDermott, to me, sounds a little bit like a hot take, but I really do believe this. He's kind of the Mike McCarthy on the defensive side of the ball. I think he's a B+ to a B to a B+ type coach. And, it's just simply not good enough to beat the A to A+ coaches that you're playing in the playoffs. And I think that's super important. Last year, they went 8-0 at home. And they were only 5-4 away straight up. So that's not, it's not, it just didn't work out too well for them again on the road. And you got to be that difference maker there, and you got to have that game plan. Certainly as far as lack of sacks taken last year with Josh Allen, certainly Deion Dawkins protecting his blind side helps out a lot. He's unbelievable at that left tackle position. The other thing that, from a betting perspective, which I'm sure a lot of people here are listening for that, a fair amount of people, is that, Josh Allen, the Bills last year, they were only 3-3 against the spread versus teams that were plus 500 on the year, but they were 7-4. So that's super profitable for the people who choose to partake in that. So that's an opportunity for you guys this year. When you see the Bills matched up against a team that's substandard, they typically take care of business. So that's an opportunity. But again, the Bills seems like they have this team or that division locked up. I think they'll have an easier time, but there may be a couple teams that, or at least one team that will at least have them looking over their shoulder now. But for the Bills to take that next level, that next step up, they got to get Josh more weapons, because right now teams are playing them at a high degree of single high safety because they're coming down to stop the run, because there's really no dual outside threats to go that dual safety where that loosens up things for the run. And you've got Keon Coleman's got to grow into that number one position. Hopefully he can. And you've got Khalil Shakur, who's got to get healthy. So we'll see that is. I know they've got James Cook wrapped up. That's a big part of the running thing. But again, what they really need is weapons on the outside. Love their offensive line. Love Josh Allen. I talked to plenty of Bills fans that are just as frustrated with McDermott as I am. I always want to see teams reach their potential. And at some point, just seems like they're not with him. I feel like that this is potentially a make or break year for him. If they should stumble this year because of the points you brought up, as far as regression of turnovers, and then potentially, no secret, the team coming over their shoulders, New England, that they're going to come up. It may not be this year, but Drake showed me a lot last year. If they come up and the Bills somehow stumble, will this year be the year that Terry Pegula, does he finally pull the trigger on Sean McDermott? There's just so many frustrating things about Buffalo that I know that I share this with Bills fans, that, man, you're amazed with Josh Allen's talent and his abilities and his potential, and you feel like, kind of like the Bengals fans do in Cincinnati, that you're kind of wasting that the organization is potentially wasting their prime there, and that they may not get over the hump, and they may become the next Dan Marino, that Charles Barkley, Dan Marino, all these people that just didn't quite get over the hump for one reason or another. But anyway, well, let's jump out in alphabetical order. I think that was a good. I think we've covered the Bills as much as we can, but let's jump into the Miami Dolphins. Tell me what your thoughts are on them. I mean, you've got, talk about a team that's been constantly trying to rediscover the magic of Dan Marino and Don Shula, and you just haven't found it's not clicking down there. And Mike McDaniel came out of the Sean McVay offense, and was this boy genius, and certainly is a non-traditional looking coach, acting coach, but everybody seems to really think this guy is great. And you certainly saw it the first year, but they really regressed this past year. You saw that just from an offensive the last two seasons, 2023 yards per play second in NFL, 2024 went down to 22nd yards per play. Offensive efficiency went from third in 2023 to 23rd in 2024. What do you think is happening there?
It's interesting. You mentioned McDaniels, and it is interesting how this new style new offense that branched off of Mike Shanahan's coaching back in Denver and Washington. And by the way, if you've never listened to the podcast called The Play Callers, that was done by The Athletic, I think 2 years ago, talks about that whole coaching tree and how it developed. But I actually started being concerned when they first named McDaniels the coach, and he started talking about how, they asked him, like, why you're going to be good. And he said, well, we have fast as shit receivers. And I'm like, well, if that's the reason you're going to be good, then I'm a little scared about you, because the way you're good in football is you got to be strong on the lines, and then you can add those other pieces, right? And so I don't know if he was just saying that for the fans, because that's what the fans like to hear. They like to hear about the skill position players. I think McDaniels knows what he's doing, but when I heard that, I'm like, oh, that's a reason for concern right there. So he's a good coach. He used to put together the running game plan for Kyle Shanahan and Mike Shanahan, and so he knows what he's doing. But you have some fundamental limitations there. I think Tua is a great anticipation thrower, but he's got a limited arm and he's got injury concerns. And yeah, I just think I don't know if Miami is going to be able to get over the hump. I mean, I have a lot more concerns about them than I do about the Bills getting over the hump. I think the Bills are primed to get over the hump. It's just only one team gets to win every year, right? And so in the Bill, it hasn't been the Bills' turn. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Miami?
Well, no. First of all, thanks for cleaning it up because I think I said McVay and I meant Shanahan that he came from his offense. So thanks for cleaning that up. And you mentioned
McVay came from there too, right? So they all come from the same tree.
Yeah, 100%. But he did never coach directly under McVay. He was assistant under Shanahan. Talking about Tua's injury, I mean, just looking at this, I was just like, that's what I was astounded with his history. I was like, he's injured. 2019 ankle, dislocated hip. 2020 thumb injury. 2021 broken rib / finger. 2022 concussions. 2024 concussion and hip. So it has been kind of that, but I don't think it's all his fault because, like you said, he has McDaniel. Unlike most offensive coaches, you saw the first thing that Ben Johnson did at Chicago is he built the offense. He's building it from the inside out. He replaced all the interior offensive line. He got them. We'll kind of talk about that and where those 3 offensive linemen he replaced immediately, where they've gone and where they're actually playing now. And it's not real pretty, but he fixed it from the inside out, and it's typically what you see an offensive coach do. And McDaniel's like, hey, we just got these fast receivers. Well, that doesn't do you any good if you don't have an offensive line that's going to hold up and actually protect Tua. And you've got a guy who's not, he's athletic, but he's not exactly what you call a running quarterback. That he's not. He's not, Jaden Daniels. He's not Lamar. He's not anybody like that, And like you said, he's got limited arm, but limited size, mobility, arm, that whole thing. But still a good quarterback, and I think a franchise quarterback. But again, you cannot not protect the guy, and I think that's what's going on. And I think that's what you're going to be in trouble with this year. I think it's a problem. Seems like they've got a culture issue there. With Tyreek Hill, kind of quitting game 18 last year. This year, they're still talking about in fall camp that Tyreek's got to, they're trying to assimilate and kind of let bygones be bygones. But, I mean, my gosh, what are you doing in fall camp if you're still kind of talking about that? And then on top of that, you lose one of your best offensive linemen, your left tackle, in Teron Armstead this year. And he was PFF last year alone, like a lot of offensive tackles, at the end of their career, not as good. But that was not the case with Teron Armstead. Last year, Teron Armstead, a 5-time Pro Bowl selections, 131 starts in 12 seasons. 2024, he was ranked by PFF top 10 in both pass blocking and in run blocking. So you're going to miss him this year. That's going to be a big hole. So a bad offensive line, to me, just got worse. You've got a culture issue. You've got his record now is worse than Brian Flores. I feel like this guy here is, Matt McDaniel. He's the guy that his seat appears one of the hotter seats in the NFL this year. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I would say so. And unfortunately, he doesn't have I don't see a real path for them to improve very much. Matter of fact, they might get worse. I don't know. They did bring in a couple of offensive linemen, and I don't really have an opinion on who they brought in. My knowledge doesn't go to that depth, but I mean, they brought in a couple guys to try and help protect Tua, and Tua needs protection. He is a good quarterback when he's clean. And especially when he can throw over the middle. The arm is not strong enough to throw deep and outside. But yeah, what are your thoughts about the additions they've made to make improvements? Is that, you think that's going to be enough, or you think they're stuck where they are?
I think it's going to be tough. I really do. I think that they brought some in. We'll see how it goes. I mean, they've had the news coming out of camp this fall hasn't been good for them. Or this summer, rather. And so I think it's going to be a tough road to hoe. And like I said, this could be a change in the guard this year at Miami for McDaniel. I mean, look, it's like McDaniel's got to become more innovative. People have adjusted to a lot of his pre-snap motion, and they just haven't had a serviceable backup quarterback either. And you have to have that in Miami because Tua is going to go down. And a lot of those injuries that comes in, you just might as well count those as losses because the backup quarterbacks they played have just been horrendous. Not to mention that if they do happen to make the playoffs, which is highly unlikely this year, if they do make the playoffs, them going to a cold weather destination is just might as well go ahead and punch that ticket back to Miami, because just make that trip a round trip, because they're coming right back home. Does Mike McDaniel have a counterpunch? I don't know. It just feels like that people figured out their offense. You kind of clog up the middle. You play the wide receivers tight, for those quick outs, because again, Tua doesn't want to hold the ball because of his injuries, because he doesn't have time. So, to your point, he's like, hey, you want to throw deep, but you got those speedy wide receivers, but they don't have time to get deep, because Tua doesn't have time to throw. Look, again, you lost. He's going to have less time this year. I mean, you lose Teron Armstead and you lose, veteran Jesse Davis this year. It's a tough road to hoe, in my opinion, with Miami. I wish I had better news for Dolphins fans, but I just don't. I just don't see them doing that. I would be pleasantly surprised. It would be great if the Dolphins were good. They certainly were a big brand name for us when we were growing up, and it would be nice to have those teams be good again, and still embrace the newness of the NFL as well. But it just doesn't seem like that this year. Speaking of teams that are changing, and there's reason for optimism, the New England Patriots, Joe. This is a team that, you got Mike Vrabel back. I know he got kind of in a tiff with the ownership in Tennessee, and that kind of, he was never very happy once they traded A.J. Brown from him. Like, what are you doing? That never really sat well with him, and that was kind of burn and saddle, which led to that rift, that eventual parting of ways between those two. We'll see how that goes, but certainly him coming back home to the Patriots seems like an ideal fit. They certainly went all in the offseason. They spent the most money out of anybody, against the cap, bringing people in to bringing free agents in to play, making trades, doing whatever they could to do this. And history tells us that usually equals to 3 more wins, which, for them, that would bring them up to 7 wins from where they were last year. Tell me, what are your thoughts about the Patriots? What are Vrabel? What are your expectations with them? And I just love your evaluation on Drake May as well.
Yeah, I'm kind of a wait and see on the Patriots. I know everybody's already saying they're going to be better, and they could be. I do see that as well. They're also trying to get back to that winning culture that they had with Belichick and Brady, which both of those pieces are gone now, right? So they're going back and they're reaching back into the time machine and pulling Vrabel and seeing if he can get it done. I think he's a pretty good coach. He's shown that. Can he turn them around? Perhaps. I mean, May has shown some encouraging signs early in his career. I would say that just from a statistical standpoint, I would say, one of the things they really have going for him this year is just like the Bills were what, plus 24 in turnover differential. Well, last year the Patriots were one of the worst in the league at minus 11, and you should see that regress in their favor this year. But in terms of how good Drake May can be, he's shown some signs. Vrabel has shown some signs of being a good coach. Will it be this year when they make their return to greatness? I kind of doubt it, but I think all signs are pointing that in the direction of them being better.
No question about it. I agree with you. I mean, will this be the year? They are kind of a fringe playoff team. You'll certainly have to wait to see the Frixers, as well as Uncle Phil's prediction on our last show of will they make the playoffs or not? Will they be a bubble team? Will they potentially actually make the playoffs? Certainly things are pointing up in New England. The Patriots fans have lots of hope, but there was lots to fix there. To your point about, the turnover regression kind of in the bad way for them, and it should be getting better. Again, one of the things that should be getting better this year alone is last year they were 32nd in defensive sacks. So that's got to get better. And you think under Vrabel's leadership that's going to get better. And I thought there was a lot of promise with Drake May last year. He had an offensive line that was one of the worst offensive lines, bottom 5 offensive lines in the entire league last year. And he had very few weapons. I mean, I doubt the non-Patriots fans could even name a person that he threw to last year because there just weren't really identifiable weapons. So you're bringing people in this year and should be good. Again, another team that played well at home or played decently at home, but not so great away. As far as where you really found a lot of value with the Patriots last year is in overs and unders. At home, they were 7-2 as far as going over the total, but only 2-6 when they went away. So those are some things I'm tracking, some things that they tended to score more points. Decent home field advantage for them there in Gillette Stadium. So we will see how they end up doing. But look, I said, I'm super excited about it. I think that I think that they're going to, with Vrabel, a lot of things that last year Gerard Mayo didn't do as far as game management and clock management were struggles of Mayo's. Those are one of the things that Vrabel's literally one of the best at in the league. So you're going to see him do that. You got Josh McDaniels back for Drake May. Again, we'll see. I mean, Josh McDaniels, never has done well on his own. Another one of those assistants under Belichick that just didn't do well. But will he do well on his own this year under Vrabel's leadership? As far as can he do something other than for someone other than Tom Brady? We'll see. But certainly Drake May gives him a lot of talent to work with that. But the other thing good for the Patriots, their strength of schedule is 30th in the NFL. They have 9 games against teams that finished below 500 last season, which should improve their ability to do well. One quick thing to wrap up that I didn't mention with the Buffalo Bills, that Buffalo has the 22nd strength of schedule this year, which is by far and away the easiest of the first place teams, which certainly gives them advantage going into this season as well. Well, let's get to them. The Jets, Jets. Talk about them. I mean, the Jets are just perennial bottom feeders of the AFC East. And is there any hope this year with this new staff?
I'm gonna go simple with this one and say no. The Jets are going to stay the Jets, and like, hey, some things we can count on, in football, and it's the Jets being bad is one of those things I count on every year,
Well,
so I'm going to throw it back to you. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm just going to tag along. I mean, you just opened the door. I mean, it's like the Jets. I'm certainly not hearing very good things about this staff. I talked to a scout the other day, and just not great things about the staff. The Jets, again, it comes down to ownership, like a lot of this thing. The culture comes from the top. Woody Johnson's not been a great owner for the Jets and has continually made bad decisions there, impulsive decisions. They've hired 7 coaches since the 2000 season. Six have been first-year head coaches with defensive backgrounds, starting with Herm Edwards, then Eric Mangini, then Rex Ryan, Todd Bowles, Robert Saleh, and now Aaron Glenn. The lone exception was Adam Gase, and certainly that didn't go well at all either. So again, just it's cultural, it's ownership. It is a tough thing. You bring Justin Fields in. I've seen him in preseason. And preseason, or when people shine, it's completely fool's gold. Something that we didn't talk about, but maybe we'll get to in the next episode, is that your impression of preseason and how much you actually value that. I would assume it would probably be very little. Would I be correct in that? Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so it's completely.
If anything, you get the wrong signals. If anything, you trust the signal, you get too much, and it goes the other way.
Yeah, that's right. It is that the Jets are certainly a good team that offers value on the opposite side. Straight up against teams that are greater than 500, they were 1-7 last year, and against the spread, the same. So it's just not a great deal for the Jets. and I just don't see much hope of them. I mean, 9 straight years of a bottom 10 offense. I mean, like you said, you can set your watch by it. It is there, and it's an offensive league, and you got continually get defensive head coaches. And what do you think is going to happen? So last year, let's see, Justin Fields, since he's been in the league, is 29th out of 34 in terms of QBR since he's been in there. And I can't imagine him just all of a sudden breaking out this year. They're going to be a running type offense. That they've already kind of signaled that. Teams are going to be stacked to play that, and teams that can, that have got, some good cover corners where they can stack the box kind of like they do with the Bills and bring kind of a single high safety and kind of tighten that up. I mean, it just looks like a long year for the Jets. So we're certainly on the same page. What's that?
Situation normal.
Yeah, 100%. Situation very, very normal.
Very comfortable. Certain thing in the NFL. There's not too many things certain in the NFL. The Jets being bad is one of them. So
that's right. Well, man, we're about up against the clock for this episode, Joe. The Frixer, it's time to rack them and stack them. Give me how you think this division's going to finish up.
I think these things are always, goofy, but, people expect them. So I'll say, Bills easily going to be the winner again, and I expect the Dolphins to stay about what they are or perhaps regress. So yeah, the needle's pointing up on the Patriots. I'm going to say the Patriots are going to make that move and be number 2 with the Dolphins behind them and the Jets in last place where they belong.
Yeah.
How about you?
We're in 100% agreement and alignment on that. I'd like to disagree just to have some hot takes, but I don't. I mean, it seems like the die is pretty cast in that. Like you said when we started off, that this seems like one of the easier divisions to pick because it just seems like, situation normal all the way across the board. I do expect, like you, to see some regression with the Bills, to negative regression, some positive regression with the Patriots to make that. But the Jets and the Dolphins just seem to be distant 3rd and 4th, and wouldn't be surprised if there were another Tua injury and the Dolphins finished 4th and the Jets finished 3rd. But again, it would be a separation of a game, and it wouldn't even be close. I mean, they're just nowhere close to being contenders with who they have.
I do have a take on McDaniels.
Please.
If McDaniels doesn't make it as a coach with the Dolphins, right? There is a long career ahead of him as a serial killer, because I think the guy might actually be a psychopath. So, and that's that's not a derogatory thing. I think he might be an actual psychopath. So he might have a successful career as a serial killer.
Well, you're heavily into reading personalities. We can certainly get through that as we go along. I know you've got some personality types of different coaches and quarterbacks as we go along that you have got people diagnosed and could be the root of a lot of their issues. So anyway, we'll let that be the last word. Thanks for joining us today to break down the AFC East. Join us tomorrow while we break down another AFC division, and we give us, as always, our honest opinion on that. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe this video. Go to UnclePhil'sLocks.com if you are serious about wanting a little action on the side and are interested in making some money this year. I went 60% last year on all my bets, both college and pro, and would love to take care of you there. And thank you again for all those that already do. Let's make the money. As always, guys, thanks for tuning in, and let's roll.